Champions League Wednesday preview. Real Madrid, Inter Milan, Mönchengladbach, Shakhtar Donetsk, all fighting for a spot in the knockout stages. We also have Ajax against Atalanta. Of course, we discuss Salzburg, RB Salzburg against Atletico Madrid. The winner of that one heads over to the knockout stages. It will be an amazing occasion for Jesse Marsch. We have Jimmy Conrad with his easy money and James Benge. Everything begins right now. He's back. He's back. He's back. I just made that song up because I'm so happy. Jimmy Conrad is back. It's never the same without you. Jimmy C, welcome back, baby.
Get in, Luis. Let's do this. What's up, everybody listening at home? Great to see, or now I got to pretend to see your beautiful faces.
Great to feel you. It sounds really weird too, actually.
Yeah, it does.
Jimmy, welcome back, my friend. How are you, actually? Let me ask you first that. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. Very exciting weekend of games. And obviously we're coming off the back of Seattle Sounders scoring 3 goals in the last 15 minutes to book their ticket for the 4th time in the last 5 years to the MLS Cup final against the Columbus Crew. Very, very exciting, and excited for that club in particular.
Absolutely. And we will have an MLS Cup special with Jimmy and Heath later this week. If only Raul Ruiz could do that for Peru, then I'd be so happy. Anyway,
I knew that was coming.
I know. Yeah, you would do the same thing if it was you.
I would, 100%.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk Champions League Wednesday preview. So much to talk about. James Benge will join us later on, but we begin with Jimmy Conrad and his easy money. Jimmy, just give it to me. Just give me everything. Let's hear it.
Okay, so first and foremost, Bayern Munich. I've learned a few times over, you do not bet against these guys. When you go to William Hill, there's not great value for them. They're obviously heavy favorites against Lokomotiv Moscow in this one. They've already won the group. They're clear on that end. Loco, though, has a chance. If RB Salzburg loses at home to Atletico Madrid and they can somehow, Loco, get a draw against Bayern Munich, they have a better goal difference. They would get that Europa League spot. So they still have a chance in this one. However, that being said, I like Bayern Munich to win and both teams to score plus 126. That's my easiest of money. You know Bayern's going to do it. Bayern's going to win the game, but I do think that Loco will put something forward. They will try to go for it. They're not just going to roll over on their last match day. It's like, and they got to hope that Atletico does the job. So I like that one a lot. Anytime I bet with Bayern, usually good things happen, or with Robert Lewandowski. But if you guys want to check it out and maybe try to find some stuff, it's tough. Everything's so heavy to Bayern. You got to find those exotic prop bets. But I thought this one was pretty safe, all things considered. So Bayern to win, both teams to score plus 126. The next one I have is also in this group, Group A, Joao Felix to score anytime plus 160, Luis. This guy scored 2 goals the last time them and RB Salzburg played, and you got Luis Suarez coming back into the team. That's only going to create more space for Mr. Joao Felix. I think this is the easiest of money, by the way. I think he's going to hit the back of the net. Atleti are on something special. They're leading La Liga. They need to win this game to get to the knockout rounds. They're going to do it. Diego Simeone in a must-win game, he's going to figure out how to do it. RB Salzburg have shipped a lot of goals. They've lost 2 games at home so far this season. They dropped out of the top spot in the Austrian Bundesliga. I love Jesse Marsch, American manager, managing in the Champions League with a chance, if he wins, to go to the knockout rounds. That club's first time in their history. Yeah, I want to subscribe to that, but I'm staying away from the result because even if that does happen, I'd really like that to happen. But I just don't see it happening. Joao Felix scoring anytime plus 160 seems like great value. And then my last easy money, Luis, and there's a lot to look at, but Atalanta just needs a draw in Amsterdam on this last match day to go to the knockout rounds. Atalanta obviously very uneven in their form, both in Europe and domestically. They tied Midtjylland 1-1 at home, but they've won 4 straight Champions League games away from home. That says something. Ajax in particular lost to Liverpool last time out. They lost at home to Twente 2-1, their first loss at home in the league this season. They're still in the top spot in the Eredivisie, but they seem, I don't know exactly what's going on with them right now. They have obviously some top players, Dusan Tadic, Traore up top, who I'm a big fan of, Neres. They've got a front 3 that's dangerous, but I think Gasperini. Now, I want to say this, and this is why it's going to make it a little bit interesting for you guys, and I'll let you decide how you want to bet it, but I'll give you some things to look at. Atalanta didn't play on the weekend because their game against Udinese got canceled because of a waterlogged field. They've had an extra couple days of rest. If you give a manager like Gasperini, who I think is one of the top managers in the world, a chance to prepare for you a couple more days, knowing you're going to have rested guys, I just think that gives them even more of an advantage than what Ajax had to go through, who started all their guys, by the way. I thought they were going to rest them because they needed to win this game midweek, and they started all their guys and played a majority of minutes. So interesting to see. So here are my bets on this. If you want Atalanta to win straight up, plus 235. I like Duvan Zapata to score, both teams to score, Atalanta to win, plus 480. But if you're more of a Papu Gomez, if you're more into the hipster Papu Gomez, who I love, the number 10, he's cute as a button, tremendous player. If you think he's going to score, both teams to score, Atalanta to win, that's plus 650. But those are the ones that I like a lot. I think Atalanta is going to do the business. I think there's tremendous value there. And I think that's what people should consider if they want to take a wager on one of these games.
I love it. I love all of them. Listen, to your point about Atalanta, this is going to be a great game, by the way. Atalanta and Ajax. And I feel, and that's really great input about the fact that Atalanta didn't play this past weekend. And a team like Gasparini's just savors that, right? They've just been like, revving up for this. I just think that Atalanta are at their most dangerous and exciting when everything is on the line. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're fresh and all you need to do is bet on that win and Zapata maybe to score. Hey, listen, who's cuter, Banega or Papu?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Nice one. They're both little cute as a button, guys. I throw Dax McCarty in there from Nashville FC. He's the ginger ninja. You got all these little tiny guys in the middle of midfield pulling the strings. So yeah, that's a tough one. I'm a big Ever Banega fan. Yeah, wow. I go with Benge actually over Papu Gomez.
Wow. Yeah. Did you just say ginger ninja on Dax McCarty?
I did.
Did you make that up?
No, he's been called that behind the scenes for many years. And
is that right? Is that right? That's an incredible nickname. Probably my top 3 that I've heard. We need to have Dax on the show, and
should. He's amazing.
And asking what he thinks of that. Anyway, all those bets are excellent. I like all of them. You have so much information, everybody, from Jimmy Conrad's Easy Money. When we come back, we will talk about the tremendous highlight needed. It's just going to happen. That is, of course, Real Madrid, Mönchengladbach, and Inter Milan, Shakhtar Donetsk group. They just, it's just going to be madness. Madness, I tell you. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We continue with our Wednesday Champions League preview here with Jimmy Conrad. Jimmy has one more from his Easy Money as we look at Group B. Group B, Real Madrid, Mönchengladbach, Inter Milan, Shakhtar Donetsk. What do you have for us, Jimmy?
Okay, so I don't know how, how easy this money is. I'm going to choke on these words really quick. But Real Madrid to beat Borussia Mönchengladbach at home, they're minus 150 to win straight up. And then Inter Milan's minus 345 to beat Shakhtar Donetsk, which I find interesting because Inter have only won 2 out of their last 6 games at home in all competitions and have yet to win at home in the Champions League group stages. So them to do the business, minus 345, that is heavy, heavy action for them to do it and make it happen. But if you put those two together, you turn those 2 negatives into a positive, Luis, and you have a parlay that's plus 115, something to consider. I think that Real Madrid, to get into it a little bit, they got Sergio Ramos coming back. Carvajal is going to come back. That's going to solidify their back four. And also winners win. These guys are the winningest team in the history of the Champions League. They've got all those core guys together. Yes, they're not necessarily firing on all cylinders. And yes, Eden Hazard hasn't panned out. And yes, we could create all these narratives, whatever. I think they're going to go in there and do the business. Borussia Mönchengladbach, though, have scored or averaged 2 goals a game away from home in the Champions League group stages. They're on fire. I just think that they are going to kick themselves after the result of this game, that Madrid's going to win, in my opinion, because they dropped points in Matchday 1 and Matchday 2 when they gave up 2 90th minute goals. That's what they're going to go back and look at and be pretty disappointed. So I don't know if you want to just focus on that game. We can get into Inter Milan in a little bit, but I think Sergio Ramos coming back into the team, whatever you think about him, love him, hate him. Yes, he dabbles in the dark arts of defending. Like, the guy knows how to get it done. So I just think that will raise the level of everybody, specifically Rafael Varane, who has dropped off considerably this season. And even at the latter end of last season when he made those mistakes against Manchester City in the Champions League. Yeah,
let's stick on this game. Before we carry on, let me just give you the scenario right now. Mönchengladbach leading the group with 8 points. Shakhtar Donetsk with 7 points. Real Madrid also with 7 in third, and Inter Milan with 5. Mönchengladbach just needs a draw right here. But to your point, and this is something that I mentioned to James Benge later on in the show, which is exactly what you're saying. Sergio Ramos, there are a few players in the world that when they're in the starting 11, they act almost as 3 players because they are just such an influence. Messi, of course, Ronaldo, of course. At this moment, I would say Bruno Fernandes is probably in that conversation as well. Sergio Ramos is that person. It's incredible how much of an influence he has on this team. And I feel that his return is vital also because he's a set piece taker, penalty taker, and adds so much value. Valverde is out, but I think they probably have enough against Mönchengladbach. It's just going to be very difficult because Mönchengladbach knows exactly how to work a team from a possession-based perspective whenever they lose the ball, etc. But this is do or die for Real Madrid. So it's a key game here, and they need that win. And it would just be incredible if they don't make it happen. It's very difficult to really see. But Sergio Ramos' return is a big, big, big deal.
I mean, let's be honest. And I think I've said this before on the podcast. When Madrid looks at themselves in the mirror, they don't see themselves as playing in the Europa League. They don't see themselves getting knocked out in the Champions League. They see themselves as Champions League winners. And they've proven that time and time again. And because they have these core guys, yes, Fede Valverde's out, and they have some wingers and Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo who are a bit young and inconsistent. And they got Karim Benzema who's back on the team. They still have enough experience in the spine of the team. Casemiro's back in now with Kroos and Modric. It's just Carvajal's back in, so you don't have to rely on Lucas Vazquez, who's formerly a winger playing outside back. You got to get Marcelo away from left back position anytime he starts. Anytime Real Madrid has lost this season, Marcelo is starting at left back. They got Mendy in the team, and so it's all to play for. They're at home. They haven't played particularly well, and I wonder about this at their home stadium, which is their makeshift stadium. They're not playing at the Bernabeu. If they had been playing games at the Bernabeu, I wonder if they would have played better at home, because right now it feels like they're just playing at some practice facility, and I don't think they lose a little bit of the luster. It's just like, oh, we're just scrimmaging against Real Madrid. It's not that the gravitas isn't there of Bernabeu. I've played in the Bernabeu, and it's so intimidating in so many different ways. Obviously, even without fans, I think there's still some allure and magic there, and I do think that impacts them. But in this game, in a must-win, well, let's be honest. Let's talk about Zidane. If they get knocked out, is he gone? Are they going to sack Zidane? I mean, it's crazy to think that that's a possibility. Yeah. For me, Zidane's too cool to get sacked. He's just going to resign. But
and he said it today in just a Zidane kind of way. But we did have Fabrizio Romano in the show, and he did say, listen, like Real Madrid is basically waiting to see what happens in this game, which translates to me that, Real Madrid, Zidane is taking nothing for granted in this one. By the way, I say later in the episode, like it would be so great to have Mönchengladbach, qualify to the knockout stage.
It would.
But, I don't know. This is, again, a do or die situation. But the idea that they lose, Zidane gets fired. Sergio Ramos, by the way, is still trying to negotiate his own contract as well. Like, it's just, there's so many pieces here.
Yeah.
Super intriguing. But that's awesome that you've played in the Bernabeu. It was an
incredible experience. R9 Ronaldo, Zidane, Beckham, Roberto Carlos, Iker Casillas. It was a dream. And I learned a lot in those 90 minutes. And what I honestly learned, it's a friendly, right? What I learned was those guys work so hard and they're so efficient with their movements. There's no wasted energy at all. They're so tactically astute that if one thing is taken away from them, they know exactly what their other three options are. Zidane is just, he's just another level. It's one thing to see it on TV, and I think you can appreciate it, but to see it in person and how smooth and fluid he is, and how I don't think he ever looks down at the ball. I always think he's just checking his shoulders all the time and looking around to see who can play and who's making runs and the timing and the weight of his passes. This is insane. And against R9 Ronaldo, that guy's quad is bigger than my whole body, and it was just he's 2-footed. We gave him a half chance in the first half. Most players that I'd play against, even world-class ones, yeah, maybe they get it on frame. Maybe it gets close. This guy put it in the side netting. He just had a little tiny window side netting. I was like, I've never 2-footed, he can go either way. He's fast. He's timing of his, it's stupid. It was stupid. It was incredible experience. And I can get into it more at another time, but I learned a lot in those 90 minutes, especially I came back to my club team and the national team as I've seen another level. And when you see those guys of that level working as hard as they did in a friendly that doesn't matter, it made me appreciate just how hard you have to continue to work to be world class and how hard you have to work to maintain it.
Yeah, I always tell I know it's like listen, young people, but I do always tell young people, like, you got to remember the Galactico era of Real Madrid. It was just another era. By the way, I also played at the Bernabeu, but it was called the Bernabeu. It's a little local park near my house in Lima. Completely different.
That's amazing.
All right, let's talk about Inter Milan. No Arturo Vidal. That might be a good thing.
Yeah.
They'll end up with more players by the end of the game. This is also like a game where Antonio Conte's like, listen, like, let's take care of business. Shakhtar Donetsk, they've already proven that they can beat the best. they can really perform. Inter Milan is bottom of Group B. A win, I believe, well, that gives them 8 points. And
they need some help, I think.
And then they need help from Mönchengladbach and Real Madrid. If Mönchengladbach win and Inter Milan win, then they're good to go.
Yes, right. If Inter Milan wins and either Real Madrid or Borussia Mönchengladbach are the clear winner, then they'll go through as well.
Right. So, they have to take care of business and then rely on the fate of the other game. How do you see this one?
I see this one as Inter winning. It feels very safe. I feel like with all the ones that are on the precipice of going bad for the big clubs and then obviously going well for them, I've gone safe every single time. I'm leaning on that experience and quality of these teams. I feel like somebody's going to pull off an upset. I don't know if it's RB Salzburg. I don't know if it's, Borussia Mönchengladbach or Shakhtar Donetsk. There's something about this Inter Milan squad that I don't know. They seem to fail when they need to step up. And so I'm reluctant to go too heavy on them, but if you can't win at home against Shakhtar Donetsk, with all due respect to them, to have a chance to go to the knockout rounds, then you don't deserve to be in the knockout rounds in the first place, in my humble opinion. But when you think about how Shakhtar beat Real Madrid the previous week, 2 defensive mistakes from Madrid, you could kind of see them. Here we go again, where Varane and Mendy are, nobody's making the big saves. Nobody's making the big chances up top. Asensio is coming back, and I thought he looked sharp, but nobody was really clinical in the final third. I don't think they're going to run into that here with Inter Milan. I think Inter Milan will bury their chances. Lukaku is something fierce, especially in European competition. Lautaro Martinez, I'm a big fan of. Barella's really coming into his own, playing a little bit higher up the field, which I like because I think he's very talented. If they can limit their defensive mistakes, Inter Milan, I think they've got a good chance in this one. That's what Shakhtar does very well, especially in this competition where they're a little outmatched and a little outgunned. They're just going to wait and they pounce on your mistakes. And right now they've done a very good job outside of their 2 games against Borussia Mönchengladbach of punishing you for those mistakes. The last time these 2 teams played, it was 0-0 in Ukraine. I don't see a 0-0 here. And I think as Inter Milan, it's interesting. You said earlier that Atalanta is better with their backs against the wall when everything's riding on the line. I would say something similar with Inter. When I saw them play, who that was, it Sampdoria the other day where they were down 2-0. And then all of a sudden they decided to play and press and go really hard at them. And they scored 4 goals in the next 15 minutes to win 4-2. I was like, why did they just do that from the beginning? So if we see that Inter Milan, that kind of intensity and urgency right from the get-go, and they get rewarded for that, because if Shakhtar can manage and weather that storm, obviously that plays a lot more into Shakhtar and more into frustration of Inter. But if they can go with that urgency right away, and I think Conte will tell his guys to do that. Let's just press them high. Don't make any mistakes in the back. Don't play too high of a line and squeeze them a little bit and see if we can get something. If they get an early goal, I think Inter goes on to win. But the longer that game goes 0-0, I like Shakhtar a lot more.
Yeah. And an angry Lukaku is a dangerous
It is.
Well, I feel like that would be an interesting thing.
It's like Brad Pauly, our producer, when he's upset.
When he gets upset, we don't get a show, guys.
We don't get a show.
We got to freelance somewhere
Tear
else.
people's heads off. You know?
He's like Mark Ruffalo, but then you make him angry and then he turns into the Hulk. Listen, let's talk about Man City obviously overthrew, but, reports obviously Zach Steffen probably making his start here.
Yeah, that's what I heard. He's starting to.
It's a big deal here. What do you make of it? I mean, it's good for him, the starting goalkeeper for the United States men's national team to finally, see some action in the Champions League.
Yeah, and it's nice to play against Marseille, who have yet to score a goal in open play in the Champions League group stages. They got blanked in their first 4 games and they scored 2 penalties in their last one against Olympiacos. I think it's a great game for Steffen to start. Obviously, get that Champions League experience and start to build that trust, right? I think all you want, if you're a goalkeeper, and for me as a center back, it was the same. If I'm going to come in for the guy that usually starts, I want to make sure there's no drop off in quality. I want to make sure that they can trust me in any situation, whether that's coming off the bench, whether that's starting a game that's relatively meaningless, whatever it is. I want to make sure, and this is a great opportunity for him. Obviously, we're very excited from an American perspective, but from what I understand, he's going to start, and that's a very big deal, and I hope he does well.
Absolutely. Anything else as we say goodbye to Jimmy Conrad? Jimmy, anything else from Wednesday's action or anything else? Because Jimmy will be back to talk obviously about all the recaps regarding this week, as well as the Europa betting preview, weekend preview. Anything else that you want to, before you leave us?
No, I'm just kind of curious about Midtjylland versus Liverpool. I'm really curious to see who Liverpool roll out. they've got so many talented young guys, and those guys are starting to step up in a more meaningful way. And I think they'll roll out more of a younger team because they've got everything locked up at the top of the group. But yeah, that should be a really good one to watch. And obviously I'm pulling for Jesse Marsch and Zach Steffen to have some American representation in the knockout rounds.
Absolutely. And Jesse Marsch, by the way, you can hear my one-on-one with Jesse that came out today. He talks about the Atletico Madrid game. If you're listening to this after that, no, well, you can't be because it comes out now and you better listen straight away. But you can listen to it on Que Golazo Pod. Jimmy Conrad, always good to have you. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, Luis.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Que Golazo. As promised, we have our very own James Benge. Benge, how are you, buddy?
I am great. I've forgotten about the North London derby. We're not talking about the North London derby. It never happened.
It never happened.
Champions League.
We will not talk about the North London derby. We'll just talk about your excellent interview with Benge and everything else. Forget that it ever happened. Let's talk Champions League Wednesday action. And with you, Benge, we'll go with Group A as Salzburg in a huge game against Atletico Madrid. Very simple for Salzburg. They win and they're through. We obviously had Jesse Marsch on the show talking about the importance of it. James, big game, huge game. How do you see this one?
I think this is a perfect game for Salzburg. I mean, so there's the one caveat that they are playing a team with a historic reputation for quality defense, and they need to win, and Atleti don't. So, I mean, that's the sort of the fly in the ointment for Red Bull Salzburg. But I think it's a perfect scenario for this Salzburg team, who are one of the best teams in the Champions League at the moment in terms of attacking football. They swing for the fences. And sometimes they're like, we've seen them drop points during this competition because they've gone a bit too hard, they've gone a bit too aggressive, and they've left the back door open. But the joy of this game for them is that, there's no reason to worry about what's going on in your defense because you have to win. You have to go hard. And I mean, obviously, I look at this attacking talent. Berisha, I think I'd not really heard much about him before this tournament began. He was amazing. Great last time out against Moscow. Patson Daka, we've probably not seen the best of him this tournament. And then the guy that we have seen the best of, and I know player that Jesse was praising on the pod earlier, Szoboszlai. These are players that will create chances and they will probably score one. So I really like the idea of Salzburg winning this, and I picked them to win. I think this is a perfect scenario for Jesse Marsch, for Salzburg. You just go for it. And Atleti haven't been great defensively in this competition, and maybe that's just Bayern. Maybe that's just, because they have been great in La Liga defensively. But I like the idea that Salzburg, if I was Marsch, you'd just be going, go for it. Come out swinging, see what happens, and, get amongst Atletico Madrid. I like them to win. I think they're going to do it.
Yeah, well, that's the perfect way, the way that Salzburg under Jesse Marsch think, actually, as we talked in the pod. Like, he is just, I'm just going for the win every single time. It doesn't matter who it is. And like you said, it's a perfect matchup. Just a few key pieces of information: Renan Lodi, Carrasco, Versalco, Diogo Costa, Manu Sanchez, they all remain out of Atleti, but Luis Suarez returns, which is a big one. And that will be a major thinking point for Salzburg. As you mentioned, Patson Daka is available for selection once again, but Berisha is looking good as well. And here's my question to you, James Benge, which I asked Jesse. He goes for the win every single time. But what happens if they take an early lead? And God knows what happens if they even go 2-0 up at halftime. Do they keep going or do they hold back? It's a question I asked him, and essentially he said, look, we keep going, really. How do you see it?
You may as well. No Carrasco, no Costa, no Lodi, who's a really good attacking defender. I just don't, I don't see that Atleti are going to be the sort of team that pose a huge threat to you if you go forward. I mean, they may well score, but, I want to give as well our listeners a sense of just how good and how creative this Salzburg team has been. So if you go to expected goals per 90 by Opta, basically saying how good are the chances you're making, Salzburg's XG is higher than Bayern Munich, higher than Chelsea, higher than Manchester City, higher than PSG, higher than every team in the group stages except for Barcelona, who have been like, bullying tiny teams from Hungary. He doesn't know any other way. The players don't know any other way. And I think almost you would worry more about Salzburg if they felt like they had to defend and stay tight and hold their own. It's just not a natural way for them to play, and that's where mistakes creep in. So, go for it. Keep going. See if you're 2-0 up, you'll be better off 3-0 up.
Absolutely. And you're talking about going for it. They've scored, 34 goals in the Austrian Bundesliga. They've scored 10 in Group A, which is pretty respectable, but they have conceded 15. That was a great first game against Atleti when they lost 3-2. So you would think that they will score. It's more about will they score more than the other team. And my worry, though, is that if Atleti only needs a draw, I think Simeone is quite comfortable. Out of many teams in Europe, I think they're one of those teams that are quite comfortable, really, just like sticking with it. But I'm going to go with you, James Benge. I think Salzburg's taking this one, and it will be such a great moment for that club and, of course, Jesse Marsch. Any final thoughts on that game before we move on, my friend?
I've got nothing more to say other than, yes, it will be brilliant.
That's the best way to end it. All right, let's talk about, we obviously talked with Jimmy about, the conundrum that is the Real Madrid, Mönchengladbach, Inter Milan group. Another big one. We had Fabrizio Romano earlier in the week mentioning that Real Madrid's going to wait and see what happens here in this last game to determine the fate of Zinedine Zidane. Sergio Ramos is still in negotiations to renovate his contract for next year. This is a huge game. They obviously beat Sevilla this past weekend. There was a good, resilient win. Not pretty, but at least they got those 3 points. And, now comes a big test against Mönchengladbach. How do you see this one?
So we all believe that there is something immutable about this Real Madrid, and there must be, because they have won an awful lot of Champions Leagues. Quite frankly, sometimes when it looked like everything was going wrong for them, and they have been in this position before, both in knockout football. I mean, quite a bit less so in group stage, but we've seen them backs to the wall. They produce good performances. But then I think, is that all I have to go on that convinces me that Real Madrid might get through here? When I look at them from a footballing standpoint, I kind of go, it's not a special Real Madrid team. It's reliant on Karim Benzema. I think, is Eden Hazard still out? Even if he was fit, would he be a great asset to this team? He's probably not going to be anyway. The midfield is old and slow, except Valverde. The defense, I think Ramos will be back, but and we've seen him do we've seen hero ball from Sergio Ramos, but we've also seen them cost Real Madrid points as well. And then I'd stack that up against everything I know about Gladbach, that they've got a brilliant attack, that they will score goals. And so I kind of think, I'm certainly not convinced that Real Madrid will get through this. I know a draw is probably the scenario that Inter Milan are terrified of, and is maybe the safest route for Gladbach and Madrid to both go through. And Italians, do they call it a biscotto? We might need to check that with Fab, but there's a fear that it will all, kind of get decided in Madrid, and Inter will get brushed out of the equation. But I don't see a huge amount that inspires confidence in me that Madrid would win and guarantee their progress. I think they're a pretty average team. Well, they have been in the group stage, and they've been, kind of outclassed. And the only games they played really well against Inter Milan. So I like Gladbach to at least get a point, quite possibly more.
Yeah, well, to your point, Sergio Ramos is back. He is back in the squad. But in that midfield that you were talking about, Fede Valverde is not still in the squad. Hazard is not either. Marcelo is back, though.
Do you want him?
Well, there's something to be said about reputation that heightens a little bit of confidence, I guess. But I don't know how important that will be against a side that's very good at unlocking certain parts of the pitch, like Mönchengladbach. But I think the key here is the fact that Sergio Ramos is back. I think out of any player in any team, aside from obviously Ronaldo and Messi, I think a player like Sergio Ramos just exudes so much confidence throughout the whole team. And not just that, he's the set piece taker in many situations. It's just a big return for him. But this is not just any team. This is a very well organized Mönchengladbach, and home or away, it's going to be very difficult. So what do you see here? Draw?
I went for it. See, when we were doing our picks for the site, I went for a Gladbach win.
So if Mönchengladbach win, that means Gladbach obviously top the group.
Madrid are out.
And Real Madrid are done. And if Shakhtar Donetsk at least tie against Inter Milan, they're second in the group, which would be kind of incredible. How do you see that one? Let's move on to Inter Milan and Shakhtar Donetsk.
Another team like Real Madrid that I just, this is what's been brilliant about this group, is it's loads of talent on paper, but seemingly they just go throw it all up in the air, this Inter Milan team, and I don't know what to make of them. But I keep, almost every game this group stage, I've gone, well, I look at the talent of that Inter Milan team, and it trumps maybe every other team in this group. Lukaku and Lautaro are still in great form. But then it's Antonio. It's almost the sort of reverse of what I was saying with Real, where it feels like it's intellectually sort of a bit lazy to just fall back on Antonio Conte and the Champions League. It doesn't quite click. But then I have no other explanation for this. It's a system that works, and it should work well in Europe because it's got nice balance to it. Most of the players, other than the whoever he plays at left wing back, are good athletic players who you can rely on. I mean, I think Achraf Hakimi's wonderful, and he scored 2, didn't he, at the weekend? So, but then there must be something other than Conte just doesn't like the Champions League, and it doesn't click for him. But that's all I've got to fall back on. And because that's not really a logical argument, I kind of still think Inter will win this. They were great against Gladbach, and they've got such firepower at home. I like them to get the job done, but this group is driving me mad. I'm kind of glad I'm not really covering it because it would be sleepless nights. It's madness.
Yeah, well, luckily it's the last game of the group stage where it will drive you mad. And I don't know if Conte doesn't like the Champions League. It's probably the other way around. That's probably what happens here. But Arturo Vidal is out. We know that much, which is good, I think, because at least Inter will play with 11 men by the end of the game. But I agree. It's a very difficult group. It's very inconsistent in terms of who you can rely on. But I'm going to go with the obvious here. I think that despite of what I said about Mönchengladbach, I think Real Madrid take this. Inter Milan. I want to say draw, man, but I think I'm going to go with an Inter win.
So if Real and Inter win, that's them through.
Yes.
I can't believe that Inter would actually get out of this group.
Yeah.
This is
just because of the better head-to-head between Inter Milan and Mönchengladbach, right? So if Mönchengladbach loses, they stick on 8 points. If Inter wins, that's 8 points too. But I believe Inter's head-to-head against Gladbach is better. Real Madrid wins. Obviously, they have 10 points, so they go through. And that would be, so after all that drama, I feel like Real Madrid and Inter will go through. I hope not. I'm actually cheering for Mönchengladbach. It's good to see a team like that make it to the knockout stage.
Yes, but then a good team ends up in the Europa. I don't need Real Madrid in the Europa League. That's the last thing I need.
Well, we just had Richie Ledesma on the show, PSV Eindhoven and US men's national team midfielder. And I said, who do you want to play in the knockout stages in Europa? And straight away, without a blink, Real Madrid.
I admire that optimism.
I love it. I love it. James Benge, before we say goodbye to you, anything else from Wednesday's matches that you're looking forward to, aside from obviously those cracking games?
Ajax Atalanta. I can't wait to see how Ajax cope without David Neres, who is criminally underrated across the continent and is a real top quality winger. That game's going to be brilliant. I'm sure you guys are going to preview it with someone else, but Neres was phenomenal at Anfield, even in defeat. I'm intrigued to see how Ajax cope without him and Mazraoui.
Yeah, it's a shame that those two are going against each other because I like them so much. But one of them, if Atalanta ties, then they're through. If Ajax wins, they're through, winning second. So it'll be a great game, absolutely. James Benge, Always good to have you on the show. I hope you enjoy the Champions League, and we will see you very soon, my friend.
See you soon.
I want to thank Jimmy Conrad and James Benge for joining me today. Don't forget to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. If you're listening to us on the website on cbssports.com, make sure that you head over to those platforms or anywhere else you listen to your pods. We're on Twitter as well, Que Golazo Pod. Please leave a rating and review. It really helps us grow this show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you very soon.